Hi, everyone. Welcome to the
Hello.
2023 Latinx KidLit Book Festival. My name is Ryan Calejo, and I'll be hosting the LKBF Jeopardy. Please read our anti-harassment policy in the chat box, and don't forget to subscribe to the Latinx KidLit Book Festival's YouTube channel. If you're a school, classroom, librarian, or educator joining us, our school visit fund is back. You can enter to win a free virtual visit from a Latinx author or illustrator for your classroom or library. You'll find the link to the entry form in the chat. All right, so let's meet our authors. We'll go alphabetically and begin with Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex Aster. I'm the author of the middle grade series Emblem Island, Curse of the Night Witch and Curse of the Forgotten City, and Lightlark and Nightbane, which is out November 7th. Lightlark is about an island that appears every 100 years to host a game where 6 rulers fight to break their deadly curses. It's now out in paperback, and Nightbane comes out in a month. Thank you for having me.
Alexandra, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your book?
Yes, hi. I'm Alexandra V. Méndez, and I'm the author of What the Jaguar Told Her, which is a middle grade novel about a 13-year-old girl in Atlanta, Georgia, who meets an elderly storyteller jaguar in the woods behind her house. And he tells and paints for her stories about Mesoamerica, and through that, Jade starts to come to terms with her Mexican-American identity.
Ivelisse, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your book?
Hi, I got a little too excited to say hello. I'm Ivelisse Housman, and I'm the author of Unseelie, which I have here. This is a young adult fantasy novel that just came out in January. The sequel is forthcoming, and it follows an autistic changeling and her human twin as they find themselves pulled into a sort of treasure hunt that will reveal secrets about the fairy world and the human world.
Very cool. Okay, so now that we've met the authors, let's play Jeopardy. Okay, yeah, so just like on the show, we have 5 categories, and they are writing devices, myths and legends, on this panel, what's that book, and name that Latinx author. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get our hands on any of those, fancy Jeopardy buzzers. So we're going back to elementary school, and whoever raises their hand first after I read a question will get the answer. All right, so let's. I guess we'll keep going with our alphabetical theme. Alex, you want to pick a category and start us off?
Ooh, I'll pick writing devices.
Okay, we have writing devices. For 100?
Sure, yeah.
A section or speech at the end of a book or play that serves as a comment on or a conclusion to what has happened. Okay. I think.
Yeah.
You're
Sorry, I was waiting to get called on. I was like, elementary school rules. Is it an epilogue?
Yes, it is an epilogue. That's 100 points, Evelyn. You're taking the lead. All right. Okay. So I guess, I guess you picked the next one, right?
How about myths and legends for 200?
Okay.
Oh, this should.
Oh wow, this is not. This should be a daily double because it's not even fair. Okay, but found in Ivelisse Housman's Unseelie, and also known as Seelie or Fae. These spirits are popular across a wide variety of myths, legends, and stories leading up to the present day. I mean, if you don't know this, I mean.
Wait, should I still raise my hand? Is the answer to this one fairies or?
Yeah, it is. Okay. It most definitely is.
Well, fairies, I don't know. It's similar.
Okay, so you got control of the board.
How about what's that book? I don't know, 100.
Okay. In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit, is the opening line of what classic fantasy novel? Okay. I think Alexandra's hand go up first.
I think it's The Hobbit.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I hope it's The Hobbit.
Okay, Alexandra, yeah, pick a category.
What's that book for 200?
In this YA novel by Adam Silvera, 2 teenage boys discover that they only have 1 day left to live. Saw Alex's hand?
Not fast.
They both die at the end.
Is it they both die at the end? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Ooh, so this is I'm glad I'm not playing against you three. Where would you want to go next?
Oh, me? I guess myths and legends for 400.
Oh, I think okay. A legendary creature in the folklore of parts of the Americas said to attack and drink the blood of livestock, including goats. Okay, I think I saw. I don't know who went up first.
I think we were in sync.
It's like in sync. Okay, so who wants it then? Raise your hand.
I know this one.
I think Alexandra's hand went up first.
Chupacabra.
Yep, I believe that is the right answer. Yes. Okay. Now that's why they use the buzzers on the show. This is to help. Okay, so where would you like to go next?
How about what's that book for 500?
This novel by Mexican-American author Sandra Cisneros tells the story of Esperanza Cordero, a 12-year-old Chicana girl growing up in the Hispanic quarter of Chicago. Ivelisse, did you raise your hand?
I think Alexandra's hand was already up before.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. My screen's like, well. Okay.
I think this is the house on Mango Street.
It is the house on Mango Street? Okay. Now I'm scared by you three.
I'm glad it was you because I would have gotten that one wrong. So.
Okay.
Are you gonna say Esperanza Rising?
That was gonna be my guess.
It was like, yeah, I saw that name and but yeah.
Okay. So Alexandra, you have the.
Oh, okay. How about writing devices for 200?
If I do not have chocolate, I will surely die. Is an example of what type of literary device, Alex?
Hyperbole. Yeah.
Okay, he's right. And I guess it's the perfect time for me to ask some of my own questions. I have a few questions for the three of you. So I guess we'll begin with Alex since you have the control of the board. So I know your last book was Lightlark, and it's such a great book. It's loved by so many people. Did you feel any pressure writing the sequel, and how was that whole process?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was really hard. I have my middle grade series that was like heavily inspired by my Colombian heritage. I'm actually visiting my family right now, and my grandma or my abuela is the one who really inspired me to become an author because she would read to me every night. She would tell these stories from like the oral tradition. And she had one in particular that I would ask her to say every single night. And so she really inspired my whole like writing career. So I always thank her, and she's like very supportive. And now Lightlark is in Spanish. It's the first book that I've written that is actually translated. So my family's been able to read it, and that's been really rewarding. But yes, I had a sequel for that series, and I was writing it before the first book came out. And so that wasn't, I didn't feel a lot of pressure, and it was really like a great experience. And also it was middle grade, and it's hard. I'm sure Alexandra knows this too. It's hard. Like you don't interact really with middle grade readers on social media since they're so young. Like you see them at festivals, and it's like, or if you have friends who have kids, but young adult is like such a different genre because they're on social media. And so you hear from them, and they really are so opinionated, and they have their opinions on like what they want to happen. And I was writing this mostly Nightbane after Lightlark had come out, and I was lucky enough to like get an audience. And so I felt a lot of pressure, and it's like translated in I think like over 20 languages now. And so all the foreign publishers, and I definitely felt a lot of pressure, and it was the hardest book I've ever written. It was really tough. I kind of like to say it took like a few years off my lifespan because there were many months where I was just basically glued to my desk and just writing this book. But yes, it was really tough. And I think that's the cool thing about being an author is every book is a different experience, for better or for worse. So it's never like, you've never like, or at least in my experience, you've never like mastered it. Like every new book presents its own challenges. But yes, it was very difficult to write Nightbane, but I ended up with a book that I loved so much. And so I'm I guess, extra excited for people to read it now.
Very cool. Very cool. And Alexandra, I was wondering.
Are the worst.
Yeah.
I was wondering what museums, objects, and works of art inspired what the Jaguar told her.
Yes, thank you for that question. Jade visits a museum at one point in the book and kind of has this moment of connection between some of the artworks from the ancient Americas that's in the museum, and kind of the magical realist experiences that she's having met this storyteller, and there was a lot of research that went into this book. And, that's something that I love to do. I have a PhD and, have spent a lot of time doing that. And I started writing this book a long time ago when I was actually interning at a museum in DC called Dumbarton Oaks, which has a great Art of the Americas collection, along with other collections. There's also a museum where I grew up in Atlanta, the Michael C. Carlos Museum, that has a great collection of pre-Columbian art. So the museum there and the objects that Jade interacts with are all very much on purpose, based on actual objects that come from Mesoamerica. So yeah, that was really important to me.
Very cool. This one's for Ivelisse. What was your inspiration for Unseelie?
So Unseelie was initially inspired by the theory that changeling mythology was an early description of autistic children. And so these myths are about like children or babies who were kidnapped by fairies and then replaced by a fairy who maybe looked like the child who was taken but just didn't act right. It was like an explanation for various disabilities in a time when people didn't have the diagnoses and language that we have now to explain, like, well, why won't my kid make eye contact with me? Why do they cry all the time? Why are they sick and I don't know why? And so, there's still this idea of, especially, for autistic kids, of people saying, like, that they wish they could have their normal child back after a developmental regression or something like that. And so I wanted to take this idea of that existing in a fantasy world and kind of make it into something that was fun and an adventure, and that followed a character who like knew that the world saw her a certain way and went on this journey to accept herself and to find people who care about her and love her the way that she is. And so that was the goal with that. And it was a lot of fun and very cathartic to just write about an autistic character going on magical adventures.
That sounds awesome. And Alex, you also had me interesting because I heard you mention how it was different for you, writing for MG versus YA. Could you touch a little more on that? 'Cause I think viewers are going to be pretty interested in that.
Yeah, so my first published, I had been writing books like for a very long time before then, but those just weren't published. And so this was actually Emblem Island was my first middle grade book. And I found it to be just the most amazing experience writing it. It's like a quest narrative. And so it's kind of like, to simplify, like the Dora the Explorer, like she goes here, 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 and then reaches the ending. And so you know where you're going to end up. And I thought that was such like a great way to tell a story. And so I really enjoyed that process of writing that book. And the world like came to me like almost like fully formed. I wrote that book like very quickly in the first draft. And I loved it so much. The experience was really great. And I think kids are so smart, and they're like, they get things so quickly, and they're so funny. And so it was really nice to like write for like my like kind of inner child, and like the 12-year-old I used to be that would have like loved this kind of story, especially with like the Colombian like myths and monsters that I hadn't seen like when I was growing up. So that was just amazing and just like a beautiful process. Lightlark was a little different because I'd been writing it for many years in different iterations. And so it was like truly the book of my heart. I think it was like a little too close to me. And so I just kept trying to get it published and trying to get it published. And so it was, again, an experience of like writing the book that I wanted to read. I think the difference is, like, for me at least, like my middle grade series is more about like friendship and like discovering who you are at that like pivotal time of like kind of like middle school, I guess, or like elementary school, where you're like, who am I in this world? What do I want? Are my wants like kind of different from like what my parents expect of me, or my society or culture expects of me? And so those were the questions I was like grappling with that. For YA, it was also kind of a coming of age experience. Like the main character has kind of been locked in her room her whole life, and she's going on this island with like people who are way more powerful, and she doesn't know what to do. But she's older, and so her questions are more like, how do I find my strength? And also you have, instead of like the friendship relationships, it's more like a romantic relationship that's like the center of that book. So it was really different, but because they were both fantasy, like you still had the world building and like the cool places that you wanted to like build, and like the mythology that you wanted to draw off of. But I did find them to be different experiences, and I honestly think that middle grade is more enjoyable to write because it's so like, I just feel like you can really like take the magic and run with it and like write for like the inner child. YA, at least for me, like the plot is so much more complicated, so it's like harder for me to write. I have to write an outline versus like with Emblem Island, I was just like feeling my way through. So for me, they were really different to write, but because they were fantasy, they still had like some parallels with the writing process.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Very cool. Oh, Alexandra, I was wondering, could you tell us how your childhood inspired your book?
Thank you. Yeah, it inspired my book in a lot of ways. One is that I actually grew up right next to a place called the Wildcat Trail. So there's a Wildcat Trail in my book, and it's based on the actual Wildcat Trail. And yeah, when I was in elementary school, I went to the school like basically right behind my house and walked to school there. And I got the idea for the story actually when I was home one summer in college, and I walked by the entrance and I thought, oh, it looks so mysterious and magical. And I know that I have all these, magical memories of my childhood playing there with friends. What if, there's a girl here who meets a jaguar in the forest, that was kind of the beginning of it. So there was that kind of magic of just like the magic of childhood, maybe a little bit like what Alex was talking about, like writing for your inner child, or evoking that for other people maybe. But then in terms of the specificity of like how the magic appears in my book and what the Jaguar told her, again, I was just like very, I really wanted to make sure that was, even though, it's imagination, that was really grounded in a lot of, primary sources. And I remember being really interested in codices and things like this when I was growing up as a kid. And then once I got to college was when I started to study these things and start to understand more about the things that just kind of had excited me, or, like seeing the pyramids, in Mexico when I was very little, then they kind of gained new meaning when I was an adult. So I kind of wanted to put all that in the book. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. So deeply, deeply inspired then.
Yeah.
Oh, Ivelisse, I know you're also an illustrator, right? Which makes me totally jealous because I can only draw stick figures and stuff. But I was wondering how, as creative outlets, do writing and illustrating differ for you, or maybe how they're similar. I have no idea. I can't draw at all.
Yeah, it's weird. Like writing and like drawing and illustrating are both things that like people ask me, how long have you been doing this? And they're both things I've been doing as long as I can remember. Somewhere my parents have the picture book I wrote and illustrated when I was 4 years old. That's all run on sentences and drawings of princesses. But I actually went to college for a graphic design degree. And so throughout my education, I was using the art side of things much more, and then kind of doing writing on the side. And for me, I think I realized once I got a little bit farther into both careers, I was like planning for the release of Unseelie and also working part-time as a graphic designer and illustrator. And I had totally separated these two like parts of like things that I enjoyed. And at a certain point I realized like that they're very much connected for me, and that I need to be doing both in order to be happy. And so there's like so many like little ways that they connect. If I can just like nerd out for a second, I was just posting about this recently for a college project years ago when I was working on like the first draft of Unseelie, before I had an agent or anything. I, for one of my illustration projects, did like a set of every outfit that the main character wears in the book. And then later when they were designing the cover for Unseelie and they asked me, like, what do these characters look like? I sent them that project, and the dress that the character wears on the cover is the dress that I drew in a college class like 5 years ago.
Wow.
Like the illustrator for the cover, like totally like brought it into her style, which was really, really cool. And there's also a map in this book that I designed and illustrated. So it's like, I'll show you another piece. There's so many little things like that where like these two crews that I didn't expect to come together have come together. And I'm really excited to try and like coordinate them more and do them more together in the future with my future projects.
Wow. Oh my, that's amazing. As someone who like, I weirdly also obsess over what my characters wear. The fact that you drew them and like you're so talented at that, and then it ended up on the cover, that's magical.
Oh, thank you. I was so surprised, like, because I just sent it to them as inspiration. I was really surprised because I was like, this is like a professional illustrator who does like this all the time. They're way better than me. They're gonna come up with a way better idea. And I guess they liked the design I did. It was really validating and cool.
Yeah, it's so cool.
That's awesome. I guess we can bring back the game. I believe Alex, you got the last one right.
Oh, me? Okay.
All right.
Okay.
No?
Did I? Okay. On this panel, for 300.
The first name of the main character in the shape of time, and also the brightest star in the Scorpius constellation. Did someone's hand go up? I'm sorry, I was reading the question. No? None of you know this? Oh my gosh, you're breaking my heart. You're breaking my heart right here.
I think we're all
so
waiting
sorry.
for you to answer. Yeah.
The answer's right in here.
Awesome.
Right there.
I don't know any star names.
But the answer's right here. All right.
I think we were all waiting because we knew that you knew very well the answer.
Yeah, but I can't. Oh, I guess I could have given it.
Yeah, you can.
I should have taken this one. This is worth like 300, right?
Yeah,
Right
do it.
I believe the answer is Antares. Am I right? Yes. Oh, okay.
A great character name, by the way. Amazing.
Thank you.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I feel a little better now. I'm still gonna shed a tear after this game is over, but I feel a little bit better. So appreciate it. Okay. Okay. So let's go to the next. I guess still Alex.
Oh, Ryan, do you want to pick? You won that one. We like.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do what's that book for 300? Okay. Every year in the magical town of Ravenskill, witches who participate in the Black Moon ceremony are placed into covens in this magical novel from Clarabelle A. Ortega. I think Alex's hand went up first.
Witchlings.
I was picturing the cover, and the title was the part that like filled in last.
I love witchings. Oh, there's a comment in the I would love to hear more about Ryan's book.
Oh.
Ryan, do you want to share more about your book?
Oh yeah. Let me talk a little about it. Well, it was actually the first book I ever wanted to write, but I didn't think I was good enough to write it as when I started writing. So I actually published 5 books before this, the Charlie Hernandez series and the one with Chupa Carter with George Lopez. But yeah, it was. I don't know. I don't want to. I get emotional about this book because I was working on it since I was in college, and I had the idea for this. I actually got the idea after watching the History Channel. They were talking about ancient aliens and I don't know some world outside of like the poles. I don't know why they talk about this on History Channel, but this is what they do. So that kind of inspired
the speculation channel.
The what?
The speculation channel.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's become. Everything's like, we believe that ancient aliens may have been here, and if so, then then they make up some other huge story or something. But it was actually my first book that I got to work kind of with a not directly with an illustrator, but to have illustrated. And I'm not sure. I can't find these. I can never find one. It always happens to me. Okay, here's one. Got some cool drawings there.
Amazing.
Oh.
Okay, yeah.
That's the dream.
Yeah, exactly. He's a Spada boy and Tyrese, and this girl he meets, Magdavelia, and they meet actually in the rip. I can't even say that because it's one of the questions. Okay, sorry, forget I just mentioned that. But they discover a world outside of our own world, and they kind of go on adventures there. And there's Martians and all sorts of interesting characters that you hear about, and kind of like urban legends and stuff like that.
That's
But
I love how on the jacket the first letter is like it's almost I don't know how to say that. It's like in the inside jacket, like when you open it up, the first letter, it's like
I can't even show you.
it's like you can see the color, it kind of like shifts. It's really
Oh
cool.
yeah,
What a
that's great.
beautiful book.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I would say more, but I'm going to spoil everything, and I think there's another question that I'm going to ruin. So I'm going to
Okay.
zip it. I'm going to zip it. So who has control now?
I think you were gonna pick
Oh,
one
that's true.
next.
That's true. I got it. Okay. Let's go to writing devices 300. He is a couch potato. Is an example of what figure of speech? Ivelisse.
Is it a simile? I hope it's a simile.
All right. That's your. Is it a simile? It's close. Alexandra.
Is this one a metaphor?
This is a metaphor. It's a metaphor.
Oh.
You're close. Though.
No.
You're close.
My fourth grade skills, I've lost them.
Okay, Alexandra, you want to?
Oh, can you remind me the name of the last column because I can't read it? Name something.
Name that Latinx author.
Oh, okay. I'll try this. I'll do that. Name that Latinx author for 100.
Esperanza Rising, I believe everyone was talking about this a minute ago, is a historical fiction novel written by this Mexican-American author. Alexandra.
Pam Munoz Ryan.
That is correct. Okay.
Oh, okay. Name that Latinx author for 500.
This New York Times best-selling YA author made her to be with the poet. It's a lot of hands, but Alexandra, I think you were first.
Elizabeth Acevedo.
Yep. All right.
Okay. How about name that Latinx author for 200?
Puerto Rican author known for When I Was Puerto Rican.
This is embarrassing.
All right, no one get this one. I have no idea. I have the answers, and I'm not even sure where they went. I should. Okay. Esmeralda Santiago.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay. Oh, you still have it.
Should I pick again? Okay. Okay. How about myths and legends for 500?
A Mexican vengeful ghost who is said to roam near bodies of water, mourning her children. Alex.
La Llorona.
Yep. Definitely right. Okay. Where would you like to go next?
Oh, me. Maybe myths and legends for 300.
In some legends, you might find yourself howling at the moon if you were this mythical creature. Alex.
A werewolf?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right, so you're on a roll here.
Okay.
You're gonna finish off that category, or
Yeah, let's just do myths and legends for 100.
what is this aquatic creature with the head and upper body of a human, the tail of a fish, which appears across cultures? Ivelisse.
Mermaid.
I think so.
I needed to wait for an easy one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Ivelisse.
How about what's that book for 400?
It was a pleasure to burn is the opening line of what 1953 novel? Did someone raise their hands and I missed it?
No, that might be my cat.
Okay.
Who has decided that he wants to be here now.
Oh.
Can anyone in the audience help us with this one? Little help? Need some help?
Is it the one where like they have to burn the books? It's like another date. It's like a
Oh.
Yeah.
1970
Oh, Fahrenheit something.
Fahrenheit 451. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So let's split those earnings among the three. Everyone gets
Okay.
So I guess Alex.
Okay. Maybe writing devices for 500.
A standalone story with characters from a previous book or series, but not a sequel. Who was it? Ivelisse, Alex?
I think I was there first.
Yeah, Ivelisse.
Okay.
And I'm gonna guess. Is it a spin-off?
I don't think that's the official answer, but I think, of course. So yes.
Yeah.
you get the
I
point.
think that's the casual answer. I
Yeah,
can't think
yeah.
of what the real answer
Yeah.
would be.
That's what I was gonna say too. Oh, Alexandra, I guess knows.
I mean, no. I mean, like, I think I would never have come up with that. But if it's not spin-off, could it be fan fiction? I don't
They
know.
actually have, I think. Can we see the answer? I'm not sure.
Oh,
It's petty. It's spin-off. You know,
That
this
one
is what I
was
want
a
to answer. It's
struggle.
too tricky. Okay. So, Ivelisse.
How about on this panel 200?
Every 100 years, an island appears to host a centennial, a deadly game that only the rulers of 6 realms are invited to play in this YA novel. Ivelisse. So I did it really quick.
I think it's Lightlark by Alex
Really?
Aster.
I wish he was on this panel to verify. Oh, look,
I
it is.
know.
Okay. There you go. Okay, Ivelisse.
Name that author 300.
Former Young People Poets Laureate and Cuban American author of The Surrender Tree.
Man, some of these are tough.
I don't know, but that's super impressive. Whoever this is.
Audience, can we get a hint? Do we have any hints? Okay, I think we're all gonna need help. Even the audience needs help on this one. Margarita Engo.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Ivelisse.
On this panel 100.
The name of the main character in What the Jaguar Told Her, and also a green stone. Alex.
Jade.
I believe. Yep. There it is. I wonder if Alexandra knows the answer to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, where do you want to go next?
Maybe writing devices 400.
A literary device used to give an indication or hint of what is to come later in the story. Who raised their hand first?
It was Alex or Ivelisse.
Alex.
I don't know.
If Alyssa, if you want to go, I think we're at the same time.
Okay. Foreshadowing.
Is it foreshadow? Yes, it is. I think you got your 4th grade skills back. You just had to warm them
Well,
up.
that was. I think Alex just wanted me to have to pick next because it's getting hard.
Yeah.
Okay, name that author.
National Ambassador for Young People's Literature and the author of the Mercy Flower series. I think I saw Alexandra's hand.
Meg Medina.
That is correct.
Another one where I was just like, I can see the cover in
Yeah,
my
yeah.
head. Where's the author's
Is it
name?
the bicycle? She's on the bicycle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Alexandra?
Okay. How about? Oh yeah. Sorry. How about on this panel for 500?
A supposedly haunted stretch of ocean in the North Atlantic and the location where the 2 main characters from the novel The Shape of Time first meet.
You almost told us.
Yeah.
You almost reminded us.
Okay, yes, I did. I was really
And then you
close.
stopped yourself.
I just barely remembered. I'm the master of spoiler alerts. Seriously,
Yeah.
like I've spoiled all my books that I've ever gone on any kind of a festival for. So.
Oh,
Ivelisse, I saw your hand come up.
I raised my hand because I saw Haunted and Ocean, and then I saw North Atlantic, and it was like, it's definitely not the Bermuda Triangle. That's where my brain went immediately.
No, I think you will go with your first instinct. I think that question was a little bit it might have been the question might be a little bit wrong. I will go with your first instinct.
Oh.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna lock in Bermuda Triangle.
Okay, she's locking it in. Let's check that. Oh, there it is.
Okay.
There it is.
I mean, I guess north of what?
Yeah.
It's debatable. Okay. So I guess we have one more category left. Black volcanic glass used by the Aztecs to make mirrors. In What the Jaguar Told Her, the main character has a mirror made of this. Ivelisse.
Obsidian.
I think so. I believe so. Yes.
This is also just a really fun word to say.
Yeah.
Feel.
Now,
That
I'm
was
really,
so
really bad
fun.
at math, so I have no idea who's winning or how many points you all have. You could have like 3 points. I have no idea.
It
That
was
was
super
so
fun.
though. Yeah, that was super fun.
Yeah, the second half of that went really fast.
Yeah.
Okay, I think they're doing some calculations in the back. I think they have some high level mathematics going on. I'm getting dizzy already. I have no.
I'm just glad that I'm not the one who has to do addition, because obviously I don't remember how.
Let's see if the audience has any questions. Does the audience have any questions for our author? I can hear typing. I think I sense it. I sense typing on from the audience.
Ryan, what were your other books about? The 5 that you wrote before this one?
Oh, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
The first one was actually let me see here. Charlie Hernandez and League of Shadows.
Oh wow, you have great covers.
Thanks.
Seriously.
I drew them all myself. No, just kidding. But, it's about a boy named Charlie Hernandez who starts experiencing these weird bodily manifestations and begins to realize that all the myths that his abuelita told him growing up were actually real things. So you actually have like La Llorona's in here. And you have La Cuca. And you have Sombreron, who's got this really huge hat that I always wanted to buy. I can never find one that big.
I love that legend. I remember once my grandma got really scared and she thought like Latinx people are very they're superstitious. Like she thought that she saw the big hat man. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so
really?
scary. Oh my god.
That's super fun. No. I mean, I was terrified by these stories growing up because my abuelitas, they would always threaten me because I wasn't exactly the best behaved kid in the world growing up. I was always jumping off something and doing something. So they would always be like, "Cómete toda la comida o te va a coger la cuca." So I was always being threatened.
Yeah, no, you're right. And there's just little things too, like those stories, but also my grandma used to tell me that if I slept with a ponytail on, my hair would be on the pillow when I grew when I woke up. It's just these little things. I feel like we know that these Latin myths are always kind of be careful to do this or this will happen, and they're still very dark. Grim tales, those tales were very dark, but they were kind of watered down by Disney and stuff. But the Latinx myths are still pretty dark and scary. So when you're a kid, you're 4, hearing this, you're terrified. You live in fear that La Ciguapa's gonna come get you, or La Llorona, or and they tell you, and you kind of live in fear when you're a kid.
She's actually in the first book too. So,
oh really?
Yeah.
Oh great, that's cool.
Yeah, my other book was with George Lopez. We did the Chupacabra series.
Oh, that's amazing.
Chupacabra. There's
Wow.
George. He always wants me to show him. I always have to show him. If not, he gets mad at me. So I got.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
Oh, we have some audience questions rolling in right now. So, what is the hardest part about writing for you, and what is your favorite part about writing? I guess we'll just go around the horn. Who wants to start off? Alexandra, I guess the top left.
Sure. Okay, so it's what is the hardest part and what is the favorite part? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. This is a tough question. Well, I'll start with what is my favorite part about writing. I feel like it's like reading but better sometimes. If you just read a book and you get super into it, and you just get lost in the world, that's what I strive to create in my writing. And the fun part about that is that, you get to make it up. And I think when the world becomes real enough that your readers believe it, then, you know, you're still the author. And in some way that means you're still in control. But hopefully your characters have become so real that they're almost like people. And so actually, you know, people won't just do anything you tell them to do. And that's also fun, to really sit down and think, what would this person do in this situation, no matter how fantastical the situation might be. So that's really fun. And maybe that's something that's really hard too, is writing something that rings true rather than making a scene be what you want it to be or force it to be, especially like if you have an idea for a scene like towards the end of the book, like, oh, this has to happen, you know, probably by the time you write 200 pages or whatever and you get to that point, like probably your characters have taken on lives of their own and the scene is not going to play out exactly how you had imagined it, like on page 1. And you have to really sit with yourself and sit with the story and listen to your editor or whoever your trusted readers are and say, is this working? You know, and make a story that actually works rather than forcing it. Yeah.
What about you, Ivelisse?
Okay, this is tough. I think for me, easily the best part of writing is for me brainstorming. I have so much fun when I'm just in the part of the process where I'm just coming up with ideas and like watching those ideas evolve. What if I added this? What if, you know, this character was like that? And, you know, I'll like draw the characters or little things from the world and like try to find visual inspiration so that I can kind of like picture everything in my head before I start. And for me, the hardest part of writing is it's very personal, but I'm just going to be honest with you guys. As an author who has autism and ADHD, like it can be really, really difficult to sit down and look at the page and get into the world, like get into the world and get into like the focus that I need to get into in order to make progress. And like that's something that I've had to learn to deal with as this has gone from being something that I do for fun to being a career. Like the more you make it like work, you know, I will tell myself it's like homework. I'm making myself do my homework and sit down and do it, and that makes it less fun. And so I am, you know, like I'm an adult. I have a book that's out and I have more books coming, and I am still figuring out how to go from that, like thinking about it phase to focusing and doing the hard work. And it's probably something that's going to be hard for me for the rest of my life, but I've pushed through this far, and I'm going to keep hoping I find better and better ways to cope with that and to, you know, make up for some of the problems that I have.
Very cool. Alex?
Yeah, my favorite part is definitely like when you see the book come together, because I think that there's like a part where it's like sometimes you're like, these are a bunch of scenes and they're not working and they're not tying together, but there is one moment where you read it and you're like, oh, this is a book, like it's happening, right? And I think the hardest part has changed for me after writing Nightbane. It was really I had never experienced like writer's block before, because before, like I've wanted to be an author my entire life. So like the passion and love for it, like always, like it's almost like even before I was even a published author, anyone wanted to represent me or publish me, like I would stay up until like 3 o'clock in the morning. There was so much passion like behind just like, even though no one was reading it, it was like for myself. But then I think like Ivelisse said, once it becomes a career in your job, there's so many restrictions and like pressure, and like just the hardest part is definitely like sitting down and like forcing yourself to get past the part that is difficult, which is like, this isn't working. I don't know what I'm doing. I like just kind of going and diving in until it becomes what Alexandra was saying, the magical kind of like focus where the entire world just melts away and you're in the book and you can feel it, and like you can't type fast enough, like, but it's hard to get there sometimes. So I think that's the hard part, is like pushing through and like kind of trusting the process and knowing like eventually it will be a book, because when you start, it's like it seems insurmountable, right? But then it's not. Like eventually, I think just like with little, like if I can give any advice to like my past self, it really has helped me to put like every single day on a calendar, like just 200 words, or like just get this done, because you can see how little tiny steps will one day add up to something amazing, which I think is true with most things, like whatever your goal is or your dream, it's always just little tiny steps that get you there. And I think like if we just all focused on like, oh my gosh, I have to write a book, it seems like insurmountable. But if it's like, I have to write 10 pages, it's like, I can do that, and then eventually one day it's a book and you're like, okay, I did it.
That's very true. And the deadlines too. Oh my gosh, deadlines! Don't even talk to me about those.
Yeah.
How do all of you
That's
get
a
by?
separate issue.
Yeah, that's. How do all of you get by like writer's block? Any interesting tips for our audience or any techniques?
I already kind of said mine. I'm like, we've already talked about like my illustration stuff. I'm a very visual person. Like I like to like look at things, and so I will find like illustrations that inspire me, or like scenes from movies, or like a certain character or like setting from a movie or TV show that feels the same way that I want my world to feel. Or I'm sorry, my cat just launched my journal across the room. Or like drawing a character in my head so I can picture what they look like when I'm trying to sit down and write what they're doing. Things like that, like trying to find something that I can like look at and then connect to the like words in my head really helps me.
I think also,
technique?
oh, sorry, go ahead, Alexandra.
Oh, Ryan, what were you saying? Sorry.
Oh, if you have any techniques, any writer's block defeating technique?
I'm not. I feel like I've experienced a lot of challenges in writing. I'm not sure that I would call them writer's block exactly. Maybe the closest I've gotten to that is when, there's this weird paradox where you really want to sit down and write, but for some reason you like also really need to clean the kitchen at that moment, and so that's maybe like what I would call like the kind of challenge I've had, or where I feel like, oh, like I just haven't got it today. Like it just doesn't feel like I'm inspired. Like I don't know what I'm doing. And I think the main thing is just trusting that if I sit there and start and I do the things to block out noise, because there's so much noise right now in the sense of like literally just text coming in or social media or remembering that you have to get the groceries, like so many of those things, which, when you're a kid, you don't, have quite as many of those things, to deal with. But if I block out that noise, one thing I do is set a timer, or like some kind of reminder. And I basically try to have like chunks of time that I have my particular amount of time. It's probably different for each person, that I know is enough time to get into the story, to get into the writing. And so I just have to trust that if I set aside that time without any distractions, without anybody bothering me, that it will come. The inspiration or whatever you want to call it, like it'll flow. So it's about kind of like trusting that it'll happen even when I don't feel like it. And yeah, I mean, that's similar to kind of what Ivelisse was talking about, but yeah, that's just kind of, part of my process.
Alex, you have techniques for us?
Oh, I agree with Alexandra. I think the hardest part is like we live in a world with like immediate gratification, like a text, or like if we post something, like a like, or like everything else in the world. Like if you go to the grocery store, like everything is like immediate, and like you have a goal and you can do it immediately. And a book is exactly the opposite. It's like the opposite of immediate gratification. You might be writing something for years before you see any sort of like someone reading it and liking it, or seeing it on a shelf, or any sort of like reward. And so I think it's really easy to just go for the immediate gratification, like, oh, that makes me feel good right now. And like, you can see the result of your work very quickly, versus like putting in the work for years to maybe not see a result. And I think we've all been through that, of writing books that don't get published. Ultimately, I think it's like all serves you as a writer and you get better, but it can be kind of like daunting. So for me, whenever I have a deadline or I really need to get out of a writer's block, I put my phone in a different room, or like I hide it under my bed, or I turn it off or something, because the worst is when you get an alert and then you suddenly are on your email and you're on social media and you're there and you're like, why did I even pick up my phone in the first place? You don't even remember because you're like down the social media hole. So for me, hiding my phone works a lot. And also just like writing a scene I'm very excited by, even if I'll delete it, even if it's in the middle of the book, just writing anything in the book helps suck me in. So that's, I guess, my best tips right now.
Pretty cool tip. I like it. We have another good question. What book did you read when you were a kid that helped you feel seen as a Latinx person?
Can I go?
Yeah, sure.
I remember Que Montón de Tamales, which is a picture book. I believe it's Gary Soto. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. But yeah, I won't say much more about that. But I do remember that there's a beautiful kind of intergenerational story there about making tamales and eating lots of tamales.
I think that was worth at least 100 points, right? I wonder if they're counting that in the back. That was a tough one. Let's see if there are any more questions here. Oh. Audience, I need some more questions.
I saw someone ask about like their abuela used to tell them like not to walk without socks. Mine does too. She says I'll get sick like if I'm like cold. So I always, and then whenever I like am actually sick and I have a cold, she like puts like something on my chest because like she's like, and it actually helps. It's like these little like remedies, or like she'll make me like ginger tea, or like she tries to feed me a lot of food every
God
day.
forbid you try to go outside with wet hair.
Oh, yes. So, you're so right. It's so funny. It's all these little things. Yeah, but it's so funny that we're all connected by those like little things that our abuelas do.
I'm starting to think your abuela might be related to mine.
Yeah, I know.
Those are her techniques. Those are her moves.
They might have a group chat.
Yeah. And does anyone have like a favorite character to write and like from their latest book, and why? I know sometimes we get those. Anyone? We're back to the hand raising. We're back to kindergarten. Anybody? No? No one's favorite? Okay, where do you get your ideas? How about that one? Evelyn? I think I saw an idea.
I was just gonna say I'm looking at the like backstage chat, and they're saying that we can reveal the scores and wrap up now. So
oh really?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
I
I
don't know. Maybe I'm the only person who has it open, but
I don't even know where to look for that. Oh, okay. Evelyn should have been the host. Oh, I don't know how to reveal the scores. So if you're waiting for me to do it, we're going to be sitting here for a while.
I can do it. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh,
Go for it.
Drum roll, please. Me and Alexandra are tied at 2,300, and then Alex is right behind at 2,100.
I think we all did really well. Like we all,
yeah,
like, good for us.
It's like a virtual tie.
Yeah, right.
And I think 200 of my points Alex let me steal because she didn't want to pick another category. So I think we're pretty evenly matched.
Don't forget me. I think I got like 300 at least on my own.
Oh, you got
yeah.
It says you got 100. So for
100?
answering your questions,
they're reducing my score. I only had 300. They want to reduce me to 100.
It was a higher point question. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know who's working back there. I'm gonna find out who's working.
Yeah, I'm not making these up.
This is not nice, people. But I guess we'll wrap up then. And thank you for attending the Jeopardy panel at the Latinx KidLit Book Festival, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.